Diana, I think you'd better start over and give me the story straight. I've listened to about as many lies about Steven Lars as any one man could handle in a lifetime. So why don't you just start from the beginning and tell me the story as you understand it?
That's the trouble. I don't know the entire story, except that Heather must have known that Peter and I adopted PJ.
But you adopted him in Florida.
Right, from a woman who said she was PJ's grandmother.
What do you mean she said?
She told us that PJ's parents were both killed in an automobile crash, and she could not afford to raise him. Lee handled the entire transaction, and the papers were in order.
But if what you're saying is true, they weren't.
Jeff, Peter, Lee, and I believed that the adoption papers were legitimate. She showed us the death certificates of PJ's parents. She showed us his birth date.
What else?
She showed us the footprints that were taken at the time of birth.
Then what made you think that PJ was Steven Lars?
It wasn't until recently that I believed that. I think that Peter found that out just before he died.
Peter?
That's right. I think the shock of finding out the truth actually did cause his heart attack.
You know, you're really grabbing at straws now, bringing your dead husband into all this.
Jeff, don't you remember before Peter died, he was desperately trying to tell you something about PJ?
Yes, I remember. So what?
And he finally managed to scrawl out a note to me, which he gave to me just before he died.
What kind of a note? This doesn't make any sense.
Jeff, don't yell at me that way, please. You're making me feel like an absolute criminal when it was Heather who's been deceiving you all along.
Heather?
That's right. I'm sure she told Peter. I'm sure that's what caused his heart attack. It's the only thing that makes sense.
Diana, none of this makes any sense at all to me. Show me the note. Show me.
Maybe we should wake her mother after all and have a call about it.
Yes, all right.
Let's forget it. She and Heather are probably both asleep by now.
Oh, I suppose you could call her in the morning, but let's not forget to remind you. Okay. Oh, I got another errand. I gotta run. I might be later than I thought.
Oh,
Okay?
that's all right. Take your time.
Okay, fine. Okay. Oh, listen, tell Jeremy I'll be back in time to tuck him in, okay?
Yes, I will.
Great. Thanks again. Bye. Bye-bye.
Take care.
And drive carefully.
Oh, I will.
Well, she seems to be bearing up fairly well.
Oh, I think this parade work has helped. It's keeping other things off her mind.
It was a good idea, Dan.
I'm sure glad she agreed to do it.
Have you talked to Jeff lately at all?
You mean about this situation? No, I've tried to keep my nose out of that. But I do know that there's been no change in the status quo.
Oh, I wish sometimes I could foretell the future. I would love to know how this is going to end up.
Audrey, if we knew what the future holds, the present would be more difficult to live through, don't you think?
Well, at times like this, I would trade a little ease for just a little insight.
Well, now, there's a gypsy over at the Oakwood tea room who reads leaves. You might give her a try.
I need someone who can read coffee grounds.
You want me to get there?
Oh, yes, would you?
Are you sure you want me to?
Steve, you're impossible. Hello.
Hello, Audrey. This is Dan.
Oh, yes, Dan.
Listen, I'm sorry to bother you, but I need to talk to Steve.
Uh-huh. Well, I'll see if I can rouse him out of his lethargy. Just a moment. Steve, it's Dan, and he says he must talk to you.
Well, I hope there's no big problem. And I am not being aroused out of lethargy. I was working. Okay. Hello, Dan. What can I do for you?
Hello, Steve. I'm sorry to bother you like this, but the parade marshal has had to change the order of the parade.
Yeah?
So that means that all the various groups from General Hospital have been moved up. So I'm going to have quite a communications problem trying to get hold of them all and letting them know.
Well, this is pretty late notice.
It sure is. But I'm holding firm that until you approve it, it stays as it is. No, I don't like to bring you out on a night like this, but I have the amended parade order here at the hospital, and I think you ought to take a look at it.
Oh, that's too bad. I just missed getting a ride in that direction with Ann. She was headed over to pick up the last of the capes from Diana. But I'll be along. I'll be there.
Fine, Steve. I'll be waiting for you. Well, he's on his way.
Poor Steve. It's a cold night, too.
Yeah. Well, those are the privileges of being chief of staff.
Here it is.
I recognize this.
You do?
Yeah. This is the slip of paper that fell out of the cookbook PJ was playing with one night. I remember how he snatched it out of my hands when I picked it up.
You have a very good memory, Jeff.
Diana, this means you were lying to me. You've known about it for a lot longer than just a couple of days. This happened weeks ago.
I don't recall saying a couple of days. I believe I said recently.
Well, how the hell far back does recently take us?
Several weeks, Jeff.
Is that all?
Jeff, please.
How long, damn it?
Okay. It was several months. Peter wrote it before he died, and he gave it to me. I never even read it. I just crumpled it up and put it in my pocket. I was so upset at the time. I found it one day in my pocket, the day that I was moving into this apartment.
I was here that day. I helped you move in. Remember that?
Jeff, please, please, don't hate me for having waited so long to tell you.
Why didn't you tell me? Why?
I was afraid.
Afraid of what? Diana, you know how desperately I've been looking for Steven Lars, and for how long? What could possibly have frightened you so much that you'd want to keep something like this from me?
I was afraid that you'd try and take PJ from me. I was terribly afraid. At first, I couldn't believe that it was true. I thought it was some terrible joke that someone had played on Peter.
And what makes you think that it wasn't?
Because Mrs. Grant found the note one day.
What? What?
And she looked at it. And suddenly, I knew that she was in on the secret.
Wait a minute. You mean to tell me that both you and Peter knew about this? And Heather and her mother? Nobody bothered to tell me about it? I don't believe it! I don't!
Listen, Jeff, it seemed to be going along in some sort of natural sequence. And I think everybody did what they thought was best.
Best for whom? Certainly not best for me.
No, it wasn't. But I was so stunned. I was so shocked by the whole thing. I tried to get advice from people. I didn't know what to do.
Listen, I cannot believe that Alice Grant knew about this. She would not keep a secret like that from me.
She would to protect Heather.
Protect her from what? Diana, it seems to me that Heather would have been a hell of a lot better off if she had known about all this instead of letting it fester like this.
Jeff, Mrs. Grant went to Dr. Nelson and asked him to not give Heather the outpatient privileges. Why do you think she asked for that?
I don't know. Why do you think?
Because she was afraid that...
I'm sure you've got all kinds of concrete proof to support all this.
Jeff, please, think back to the days that Peter was in the hospital. Lying there, no one knew if he was going to live or die.
Yes, I remember those days, yes.
And he became so obsessive about PJ, and he demanded to talk to you. Remember that? Something he had to tell you before he died.
Peter wanted me to help take care of you and PJ if he died.
That's what we all thought. But what he really wanted to do was to make a clean breast of it and to tell you that PJ was really your son.
I won't believe any of this. I'm sorry.
Jeff, if you want more proof, think about Heather. complained about how possessive she was about PJ. How she wanted to babysit for him all the time. She would take him over to your apartment. She wanted to be with him 24 hours a day. Peter and I talked about it. That's why we finally had to replace her with Maggie. Because we felt it was unhealthy for her. After just having lost her son. Doesn't it all make sense to you?
Diana, she was always crazy about PJ.
And then she tried to drug me, Jeff. Jeff, why are you being so stubborn about this whole thing? Just think. Think for a minute. Think back to those last moments at the hospital.
Relax.
I can't.
No, you've got to, man, or I'll have to leave.
No.
All right. I'll stay. But you've got to calm down, Peter.
Jeff, I'm dying.
Peter, for God.
I'm dying. No, I know it, and you know it. I've got to tell the truth before I go.
Where are the adoption papers, Diana? I want to see them.
I'm sure they're in here. I haven't looked for them in a long time.
Diana, I still don't see how PJ's adoption papers are going to prove that he's Steven Lars.
Jeff, the woman posing as PJ's grandmother had a copy of footprints taken. She must have gotten them from Heather. Here they are. I am sure that these are Steven Lars' footprints, even though there is no name on them.
And no hospital name, I take it.
That's right. But you can prove it yourself, Jeff. Take these to General Hospital. Compare them. Compare them to Steven Lars' footprints. The ones that were taken of him at birth. Jeff, when you realize that I am telling you the truth, can we have a life together? Can we with our son?
They're both asleep.
Hello? Who am I speaking to?
This is Jeremy.
Is your mother there?
No, nobody's here but me. You want me to take a message?
No, I just wanted to check on something.
I can't hear you very well. Your voice sounds kind of weird.
I have a cold.
What's your name?
This is the seamstress, Mrs. Renfrew. I'm doing the case for the parade tomorrow.
Right, sure, yeah.
Well, I just wanted to find out if your mother was going to pick them up tonight.
Yeah, she is. She's on her way over there right now. She, had to stop by Mrs. Taylor's along the way and do something else, before that. I'm sure she'll be there pretty soon, but maybe you better call Mrs. Taylor first.
Yeah, it's a good idea. I think I'll try that.
I'm pretty sure my mom will be there by now.
Oh, thank you. I just wanted to make sure everything goes according to schedule.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Meet two of the stars from the daytime drama The Young and the Restless. Then watch beauticians compete for America's Cup of Hairdressing.
Barney Miller throws the book at a librarian who's found an outrageous way to keep people quiet. Then the taxi gang puts on crazy outfits and crashes a celebrity costume party. And on 2020, Tom Hoving offers an insider's look at the business of making movies today. Now stay tuned for The Edge of Night, following FYI with Hal Linden, next on ABC.